Here's something else you could do while that dough is chilling in your refrigerator. Let's get these veggies prepped. You'll see I've already done my carrots, and this is what we're going for, this very thin slice. This is about 1/8 of an inch in thickness. No shame in pulling out a ruler to see how big that actually is. I would actually try to get it just, 1/8 inch or slightly thinner if you can. You don't want to be able to see through it, but you definitely want it to be thin. So I've done my, and you're going to want roughly 20 strips of some sort of vegetable. So I've got, about 60 strips. So I've got 20 carrots. I'm going to do about 20 of my yellow squash and 20 of zucchini. And let me show you how I cut these. So I start off by just lopping off the ends. And because you'll notice, I kind of want them all to be roughly the same height. And you'll see that the zucchini is about double the width of the carrot, which works in our favor because this way, this means we could just cut the zucchini right down the center. I'm trying to be pretty even here with this. And that way, when we cut slices from this, they'll be about the same thickness as this. I mean, obviously, this is nature. Nothing is going to be perfect. And of course, you're going to have these parts that you cut off the side, which will be shorter. So typically, if I have enough zucchini, these side pieces are ones that I might just use later in cooking a stir fry, or just incorporate somehow into our dinner tonight. And just let the knife do the work for you. If you have a nice sharp knife, this should not be a problem. And really, a sharp knife is not your enemy, it's your best friend. Some people are worried about having knives that are too sharp. And I do get that if you have small children in the house who you're afraid might grab it or something, because that would be bad. But honestly, there are more emergency room visits caused by dull knives than by sharp ones. It seems counterintuitive, but it's true. If you have a sharp knife, it'll just cut through your vegetable or whatever you're cutting without much problem. But if you have a dull knife, you have to put a lot more pressure on it. And if you're cutting this and it like slips off, or somehow you lose control while you're putting that much pressure on it, it's not that dull. It'll still go through you. So that's why if you have a nice sharp knife, it is safer and easier. So why wouldn't you do it? You could get your knives professionally sharpened, or just buy a knife sharpener to have at home. They're not that expensive and they do a pretty good job. Also, the bonus of cutting this in half is that it lies really flat on your cutting board, so you don't have to worry about it shifting around. The carrots are a little bit tricky. Usually, if this was a carrot, I don't want to cut too much off of it because they're not as wide as these other vegetables, and I still want them to have a little bit of height. But what I usually do is cut a piece off the side, maybe like that, just to give it a bit of a flat surface on one side so it's stable when I have it here and I'm trying to cut those slices. Because if I'm doing this seems like, an accident waiting to happen, right? So what we're gonna do is cut all our veggies like this. Once again, this is a lot floppier than the carrot, but the width is about the same, about 1/8 of an inch. And you're gonna wanna cut all those up until you have 60 to 70 strips to do one full-size tart. Like I said, I'm gonna do 2 smaller ones. I might not need quite as many, but I'm gonna cut up 60 anyway. It's always better to have a little bit more than a little bit less. If you have too many, you eat the extras. If you have too little, then you end up trying to move them around a little bit and make the spaces seem less obvious. And it's still doable, don't get me wrong, I've done that before, but this is by far preferable if you have enough produce. So I'm gonna keep chopping, the dough's gonna keep chilling, and as soon as I come back, actually, we're gonna talk about the next step in prepping these so it's all ready by the time our dough comes out of the oven. Okay, I've finished chopping up or slicing, I guess, all of my veggies, and here's what I ended up with. I ended up using 4 carrots, 1.5 zucchini, and 1 yellow squash, so I ended up with 19 slices of carrots, 24 slices of zucchini, and 15 of yellow squash, which means, yeah, most of mine is going to be green, but I'm okay with that. If you want more carrot or more yellow squash, you can do that as long as you come out with about 60 to 70 slices in general. If you could find purple carrots, yellow carrots, and you just want to do all carrots, that's fine too. And then here's what we're going to do next. What we want to do is cook these just enough so they will be more flexible and malleable, and so we can shape them. They are all, even though this looks very flexible, if we try to really curl it up, it's just going to crack. So we want to cook them, but not so much that they're going to taste like cooked vegetables. We still want them to have that fresh taste. So what we're going to do is called blanching, which just means cooking quickly in boiling water. So what I have here is a pot of boiling water to which I've added about half a teaspoon of salt. Obviously I have my veggies. I have a strainer here to put them into after they're cooked to get the excess water off, and I just put that in another bowl to catch any water that might drip off. We shouldn't get that much water in here. You'll see there's a lip on the bottom of this bowl so it's not sitting in the water. If it seems like the water is building up in there, I could just take that and dump that out. The last thing I'm going to want is a way to keep time. I'm just using this stopwatch function on my phone, but if you have a clock handy or a timer, that works just as well. So different veggies cook for different times. So we're going to start with the carrots, which will take about 2 minutes each. So I'm going to drop those in there and start my timer. You don't want to put too many at once because you want the water to keep boiling. If you put a lot of them in there at once, it's going to drop the temperature of your water, and all of a sudden that water's not at boiling anymore, and you have to wonder whether or not you have to add additional cooking time or not. So I'm going to go ahead and cook the rest of these carrots for 2 minutes each. Okay, 2 minutes is up. Let's check them. So you should be able to grab it, and it should be floppy. Looks like this might need... Nope, it's good. It'll curl. So we're pulling these out at 2 minutes. And I guarantee you 2 minutes has never felt longer in your life. In goes the next batch. Okay, the great news about zucchini and yellow squash is it is not as firm as carrot, so it only takes about half the time to cook. These are just going to go in for 1 minute. At 1 minute, pull these out because these can overcook really quickly. Shake a little bit of that extra water off. Next batch, set the timer. Okay, the cooking is done. Give those a little toss. You could see not too much water came off of those. And now I'm just going to set them aside, let them cool a little bit, let more water drain off, and I'm going to go get that dough into the oven to make the shell for the tart. Hi, I'm beating up that egg that I forgot to tell you about. This is just something we're going to need to attach some of the pieces of our dough to each other. So all I have in here is an egg beat up with about a teaspoon of water. I'm just going to set that aside. Now we are ready to start making our tart shell. Once again, we're going to put some flour on our board. And if you are making one large tart, all you're going to do is open this up and start rolling it into a circle shape, okay? You want the shape to be, or you want the circle to be large enough so it will cover across the bottom and up the sides all the way around, okay? When you do that, you will lay it in here and then trim off any excess that is sticking up over the side. If you're not using a tart pan, like I'm not today, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna do 2 little ones. You can do 1 big one or 2 little ones. You're going to want pieces of parchment that are going to be a little bit bigger than the size of your tart. So I've got 2 here. And then take your dough, plop it down here in the center, and cut it in half if you're doing 2. If you're doing 1, start rolling. Okay, a little more. Flour just to keep it. And you could see, look at, we made all those layers in there. That's what makes it that's what makes it flaky after the fact, is all those layers that we've got of butter and flour and butter and dough and butter and dough. And what happens is the butter steams, because butter has moisture in it. So when you put it into the oven, it will steam and creates these pockets that end up being full of air, which makes it feel all flaky and airy inside, and that's why it's so good. So it's totally worth doing that, those extra steps to get it to work. And then you're gonna try to roll this into a round shape. It's not super easy, but just work at it and get it as close as you can to round. I mean, mine is definitely more square. I mean, you started out with a square, so it's going to want to just roll out into that shape, but it's okay. You know, we could always trim the excess off. You want to roll it to a little bit bigger than what you're using as your guide. So this is my 7 1/4 inch plate. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is 2 cuts. I'm going to do 1 cut with this sharp knife right along the edge of the plate. Then I'm going to do a second cut about 1/2 inch beyond that, all the way around. You might need to coax it in a couple spots where it might want to pull or tuck or something. And then this exterior piece, this is just a scrap that I'm going to set aside for now. and maybe I'll make something delicious out of it. Maybe I'll even show you. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have going on here. The center cut right around the plate and about a 1/2 inch all the way around it. Now I'm going to take my parchment paper, I'm going to cut a slit around this exterior circle just to get that out of the way for now. Oops, I didn't get all the way through it over here. There we go. And now you could either lift this up, maybe use something to help you so you don't get it too out of shape, and put it right on your parchment. Then we're going to take a little bit of this egg wash on a brush, or you could just do it on your finger. There's no law against that. Just wash your hands before you touch something else or lick your fingers. But this is basically going to act as glue. And since we're not putting this in a tart pan, what we're doing is we are creating our own edge on here. So then we'll take this dough that we cut off and we will just overlap it. So we're creating our own rim. You're not putting it on the outside of the dough, you're putting it right on top of the circle you have, just around the edge. And of course it's going to be longer because we cut that circle from around the outside. So just tuck it, just like that. And then we're going to slide that onto our baking sheet and do the same thing with the next piece of dough. Okay, I've got them both on the sheet tray and I'm about ready to put them into the oven. But first I want to prick little holes in the bottom of this. So you're not going to poke holes where we did that double layer around the edge, but we are going to put them all along the bottom. And this is because we want the bottom to stay pretty flat. You don't really want that to poof up too much because that's where we're going to be layering in the cheese and the veggies. But we want that air to be able to escape from down there instead of building up and puffing. And I will tell you, it will still puff. So what you're going to want to do is about halfway through baking, open up your oven, take a look, and if it's poofing up in certain spots, just take your fork and knock down those air bubbles again. All we're gonna do now is make sure that our oven is at 400 degrees. Put these in there. I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes and see how it looks. What you're looking for is for it to be a beautiful, consistent golden brown. Okay, it's been 7.5 minutes. Let's take a look. Oh, remember, 400 degree ovens are hot. Okay, so knock that down. All right, we've got about 7 minutes left before that comes out. Let's take care of this cheese. We're not going to need all of this cheese for our tart. So I'm going to use about half of this brick of cream cheese and also half of the container of Burson cheese. And then the rest just goes in the fridge for you to do with as you please. So half of that into the bowl. And then this one also. And because these have been at room temperature for a little while, They are definitely soft enough for me to scoop that out. And those will go back in the fridge. Okay, and then these just get smushed together. You want to incorporate it because the Burson cheese is where all the flavor is. You know, that's got the herbs in there. And the cream cheese is just kind of filler. If you did 100% Burson, you could. It just gets really strong and overpowering. And you've got some beautiful vegetables on here. And you want to be able to appreciate the flavor of those as well. So the cream cheese just kind of makes it, just neutralizes it a little bit. So you still get the delicious flavor of that cheese. It's just not as in your face, you know. It's makes it more compatible with the rest of the ingredients. So while I'm doing this, I want to let you know I also took those veggies that I blanched and I put them into the refrigerator. So they would stop cooking, and also so when I put them on top of this cheese, they will no longer be warm, and we will be able to, and there won't be any melty cheese issues. Okay, so that's all creamed up beautifully together. I've got a couple more minutes for my tart shells in the oven, and as soon as that's done, we are going to start putting it together. Hooray! Okay, I've just taken these out of the oven with a little help from Monkey and Pig. Anyhow, you can see they are a nice golden color. These aren't going to get really, really dark because we didn't put any kind of egg wash or anything over the top. Because sometimes if that runs down the side, it inhibits how it rises. And then we're just going to slide these off of this hot sheet pan right onto a cooling rack so that they don't keep cooking and potentially burn on the bottom. And yeah, that's hot, but I want you to see how that, okay, Monkey to the rescue. How that edge we created gives us a little bit of a lip on there. You could see when I put my finger up and over how much of a lip we actually have created just by putting that extra ridge of puff pastry around the edge. So I'm just going to let this sit here for a few minutes until it cools. FYI, I did end up baking this way longer than 15 minutes. It was actually in there about 22 minutes. So you're just going to want to keep checking and looking to see what the color is. Probably your best hint is the color that's right here along the top edge should be golden, and you should also see kind of a golden edge along the bottom because you want that bottom to be crispy and golden as well. Okay, as soon as this is cool, we will finish it off. Okay, while that's been cooling, I have been getting busy rolling some of these veggies. So I've taken them out of the fridge, and some of them may still be a little bit wet. So if they are, I just lay them out on a paper towel, put another one on top of it, and kind of just tamp some of that water away. After you do that, you just want to lay it down on a flat surface and start rolling it. You know, however it's easier to do it for you. If it's easier to put it along a surface, if it's easier for you to just roll it in your hands like this. But this is what you're going for, just a spiral. And when you place it down, there's this end that sticks out. If you just put it down like this, it's going to start, of course this one won't do it, but it could start unraveling. So I just like to put that right up against another one that I've already done. So I've done, I think all of the zucchini, and I've done some of the yellow squash, so that you do all of these the same way. And if you find the end is a little firm and it doesn't really want to roll as tightly as you think it should, it's okay. There could be kind of a bigger gap in there. You might find that mostly is an issue with the carrots because, you know, the carrots are a little hardier. but you just start rolling it up. And, you know, it's supposed to look like a flower, right? So as long as you end up with, whoops, and that part just got away from me, with an overall appearance that looks flowery, you're gonna be okay. You know, flowers are not perfect either, so just keep rolling, rolling, rolling until you have them all done. Okay, now we're ready to put it all together. I have rolled all my zucchini and yellow squash. My carrot was being a little persnickety and didn't want to stay rolled up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do those as I go and stick them into the cheese base layer that I'm putting on here, and then it should all hold together pretty well. So I'm gonna put this on a serving plate right off. And of course, if you're doing one large tart, you are going to use all of your cheese mixture. And if you're doing two small ones like I am, then you're gonna use half of it. And you're just gonna spread it all over that base. That's about half. You don't want it too thin because you want the vegetables to stick in there and have something to grab onto. If you so if you do it too thin, there's nothing for them to stick into and grab onto, and they'll just end up flopping all over. If you do it too thick, the worst thing that happens is you have a lot of cheese. You decide if that's good or bad. Okay. I think this is looking pretty good right here. Maybe just a skosh more. Right in the middle. It seems a little thin. And then all you do is start placing your flowers. So however you like it. I'm going to put a green, a yellow. You know, I like to keep it a little bit, you know, varied. So I'm going to do, I'm going to try to stagger them instead of just making it completely random, just because I want the colors to be balanced throughout the whole thing. Carrots are a little bit slippery, but you'll see once you have that cheese in there, it'll stay and it will hold and it'll look good. And you don't have to worry about it coming apart later because it's really not going to be much of an issue. All right. Nice little yellow one. And you're just going to keep going with this and keep building it until your tart is completely filled up with beautiful flowers. And once you're done, this is what they're going to look like. I think it's pretty fab. But I did want to tell you this. The carrots can be tricky, and you might end up with a large center hole and not like a tight spiral like you might want, but it's okay because you can fix it. Take a look at this one. I don't think you would look twice, but the spiral actually starts here, and I had this big hole in the center, so all I did was broke off another piece of carrot and popped it right in there. And in fact, I did that on most of the ones with the carrot. There's one. There's one. That's okay. But there's one in there. So that's the end of this one. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this demo and have learned something. And I really hope you give it a try because this is one of my favorite things. It looks really beautiful. It takes a little while to make it just because rolling up all of these veggies takes a few minutes, but I mean, it makes a beautiful presentation. If you give this to someone, they're going to know that you think they're someone really special, and isn't that kind of what it's all about? So hope you enjoyed, and I will see you real soon with something else. Bye. This is the surprise delivery for my mom. I'm not really bringing her steaks. I hope she likes it.
Oh, you brought me some Omaha steaks?
Yeah.
Oh, how pretty. That's just what I need to have tonight. All we had was hot dogs. So this will be a perfect little treat to have you tonight.
Great.
Thank you so much.